Today, we're gonna fix up one of my first ever denim patchwork projects. If you guys have been following me since my previous channel, you guys would probably remember these, and it's falling apart. I mean, you can see these plaid fabrics, they're coming off. It's actually missing a panel here at the bottom. The right side, this black panel right here, I did a pretty decent job because it's still intact. I did actually hand sew around the edges of it, but I don't think I did the bottom, or maybe I did, but the thread came off. I think it did come off actually. The panel below it, it's missing a lot of words, a lot of letters. It's supposed to say raw like multiple times all the way up here, but it did come off, as you can see, obviously. I won't be making this an exact one-to-one or how it was supposed to look like. I will be changing up a little bit, while at the same time keeping those similarities, you know, trying to keep it the same for the most part, but I will be changing up some techniques and adding on a couple of things here and there. Also on the back side, there's nothing there. I probably will be adding some stuff because I don't want it to just be blank, you know, so add something probably minute, nothing too like crazy, but I probably will be adding something crazy. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's get into it. Not gonna lie, if I made a project using the methods I use to make these nowadays, that video would never see the light of day. But I mean, I can't be too hard on my past self because I mean, we all gotta start somewhere, right? And I think I've come a pretty long way since then. For some of the panels, I made the right call in hand stitching them to really secure them to the denim. Though it looked like I took a shortcut to speed up the process because the gaps in between each stitch was like 4 inches long. But I think I also gave up on hand stitching after only 2 panels, ended up going the easier route by using fabric adhesive tape, which worked, but the longevity just wasn't there. Ironically, nowadays, I spend hours just hand stitching my projects. I just like how it looks, and I guess it's kind of part of my style now. I remember I tried adding in some details to the panels by keeping the original hem of the denim I used, but it's honestly just too thick, so I plan to remove it. So here I drew out my plan for these pants. It's kind of a lot, but having a rough draft is much better than having no draft, and it's also something to go off of. Of course, the first step I did was opening up the hem to extend the length because the pants already were kind of short on me. Now I could have added an extension to lengthen them, but nah. For the thread, I decided to use mainly black and red instead of the off-white thread that I usually use because I just think that it'll match the aesthetic a lot better. And to make the hand stitching process much easier, I opened up the outseam of both pant legs. Again, I wanted as much as possible to keep the original designs and placements of each panel where they were already, so I re-hand sewed them to really secure them and then removed the former stitchings to clean it up. For the denim panel, I cut off the excess folded seam as well as part of the hem after I opened it up. The plaid panels were more flimsy than the denim, so when I was removing them, areas that were still held down by the adhesive basically ripped, which was fine because I prefer the more rugged, used look rather than super clean. But once they were removed, I rearranged them a little bit, added on another pound to fill in the spaces, pinned them in place, and then sewed them down. The next part was more of an experiment. I wanted to remove the transfer paper as well as the remnants of the adhesive tape that was showing with some nail polish remover because it had acetone in it. It wasn't working that well. Maybe I had to invest more time into the rubbing, but I ended up just using my X-Acto knife to scrape off the transfer paper and then either covered up the adhesive tape trails or left them as they were. The main thing I wanted to do to the back side of the pants was for it to be filled with a bunch of hand stitched designs more than anything. On the bottom of the right leg, I tried to mimic a plaid design by drawing in a 3x3 box that had a certain pattern of stitches per box. I don't think I really achieved what I had in mind, but I'm still happy with the end results regardless. I made another design on the other leg. It was just something simple and not too complicated. To make both the front and the back look a little bit more cohesive, I added in some panels to the back side so it wouldn't look like 2 different projects. But before I finalized them, the gray fabric was looking too clean, so I added in some scrapes using a filer to make it look a little bit more worn and rugged, and then sewed them down. The original plan for the denim panel on the front was to spray paint the word raw multiple times throughout, just like how the original design had it. But I changed my mind and instead wanted to add in this rose graphic. But instead of printing it on with transfer paper or spray painting it on with a stencil, I decided to take the more time-consuming and tedious direction by hand sewing it. After I finished stitching in the outline of the rose, I realized it took me 30 minutes to complete it. And I was like, bro, I gotta invest in an embroidery machine because that's honestly really ridiculous how much it takes just to do that little part right there. But for now, you know, hand sew everything. For the stem, I used a forest green thread because I wanted the red of the rose flower itself to pop. Now, all that was left to do was sew the pants back together by aligning and following the original seam crease lines of the pants. And we're done. Or so I thought. I tried the pants on and looked in the mirror and, well, I wasn't satisfied with it. For one, The fit of the pants were slim already before I did anything, but the hand stitching kind of made it a tiny bit tighter. Also, the length of the pants was still too short for me despite opening up the hem. Now these can be fixed by adding in like an inseam or outseam side panel and then splicing in an extension of denim fabric to the bottom of the pants to lengthen it, but yeah, I'm good off that. But one thing I did want to change for sure was the stem of the rose, because I wanted to see the whole rose, you know, not just the bulb, not just the head of it. The stem, it was just dark thread on dark fabric and it was clustered together, so that didn't help at all. It was just barely visible. To fix this, I taped off the rose in certain parts of the design and sprayed diluted bleach onto it. After just one round and waiting until the next day for it to like completely dry, it turned out so much better than I expected. The last thing I wanted to change was the size of the denim panel. It was just too big, so I just trimmed it along the outline of the graphic.